The NFL is famous for two things: massive contracts and athletes who lose them with staggering speed. The stereotype of the broke athlete is a tragic reality, with statistics showing a terrifying majority of players facing financial ruin shortly after retirement. But within the league, a secret fraternity operates in stark contrast to the diamond chains. These are the financial fortresses. Men who signed multi-million-dollar deals but chose to live with radical discipline to secure their families' futures. Number 10. Giovani Bernard. When you hear your name called in the early rounds of the NFL draft, the immediate expectation is a lifestyle upgrade that matches your new tax bracket. The culture of the league practically demands it. Rookies are heavily pressured to purchase the matte black G-Wagon, the custom-wrapped sports car, or the luxury SUV to prove to their peers and the world that they have finally arrived. But when running back Giovani Bernard was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the second round of the 2013 NFL Draft, he completely ignored the unwritten rules of the locker room parking lot. Instead of heading to a high-end dealership with his new signing bonus, Bernard pulled up to the Bengals training facility in a vehicle that turned heads for all the wrong reasons: a silver Honda Odyssey minivan. To make the situation even more humble, the vehicle wasn't even his. The minivan belonged to his girlfriend's mother. HBO's Hard Knocks. Cameras famously captured the young millionaire casually driving the ultimate soccer mom vehicle to grueling NFL practices, much to the amusement of his teammates. While his veteran teammates were revving V8 engines and showcasing Italian leather interiors, Bernard was perfectly content utilizing the ample cargo space of a borrowed family van. This wasn't a temporary stunt for the cameras. It was a deeply ingrained philosophy about utility over optics. Bernard understood early on that a vehicle is a depreciating asset designed to get you from point A to point B. He refused to pay the ego tax that bankrupts so many young athletes before they even finish their rookie contracts. He used that minivan to pick up bulk pizza orders for charity and commute to work without a single ounce of shame. By rejecting the immense peer pressure to look wealthy, Bernard laid the psychological groundwork for a stable, decade-long career in a position where the average lifespan is less than 3 years. He proved that true confidence in the NFL doesn't come from the emblem on your steering wheel. It comes from knowing your bank account is compounding quietly in the background while everyone else is paying interest on their image. His career with the Bengals and later the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was defined by this same level of consistency and reliability, making him a favorite among coaches who valued his no-nonsense approach to both the game and his life. Number 9. John Urschel. John Urschel is an anomaly in the truest sense of the word, a man whose physical power was only matched by his immense cognitive ability. On the gridiron, he was a massive bruising offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens, tasked with moving 300-pound defenders by sheer force and technique. But off the field, he was a brilliant mathematician who would eventually retire from professional football at the height of his career to pursue his PhD at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Because his brain operated on a plane of pure logic and statistics, Urschel viewed NFL wealth entirely differently than his peers. He looked at the historical financial data of retired players and decided to remove himself from the equation of failure entirely. Upon being drafted, Urschel received a handsome signing bonus of over $144,000 on top of his lucrative rookie salary. Most players would use that lump sum as a down payment on a luxury estate in the hills. Urschel used it to buy a used Nissan Versa for exactly $9,000. He didn't finance the car. He simply paid cash for the smallest, most economical vehicle he could comfortably fit his massive frame into. But his frugality didn't stop at the dealership. Urschel essentially lived on a graduate student's stipend while playing in the most profitable sports league on earth. He documented that he was living on less than $25,000 a year, a figure that most Americans would find challenging, let alone a professional athlete. He shared an apartment, cooked his own meals, and avoided the extravagant nightlife that drains NFL wallets. He understood the mathematics of compound interest better than anyone in the league, recognizing that a dollar saved in your 20s is worth 10 in your 50s. Urschel knew that an NFL career is incredibly short and physically devastating. By living like a broke college student, He ensured that every dime of his NFL salary was funneled into investments that would fund his true passion: a lifetime of academic research. He used his brutal physical prime to buy his intellectual freedom. Today, as an accomplished researcher specializing in spectral graph theory and numerical analysis, Urschel stands as a testament to the power of long-term thinking. He didn't just play the game. He calculated the most efficient way to exit it with his health and his wealth entirely intact. Number 8. Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is one of the most reliable and explosive wide receivers in the history of the Seattle Seahawks. His elite route running and sticky hands earned him a massive 4-year, $69 million contract extension, cementing his status as a cornerstone of the franchise. When a player signs a deal approaching 9 figures, their next move is usually to buy a sprawling, multi-million-dollar mansion to match their new tax bracket. Lockett did want to buy a luxury home, but his intense frugality and sharp business mind simply could not stomach the standard process of acquiring it. When you buy a multi-million-dollar property, the real estate agents involved walk away with a massive commission check, usually around 3 to 6% of the purchase price. For a luxury home, that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, evaporating into thin air. Lockett looked at those numbers and refused to hand his hard-earned money over to a stranger for work he believed he could master himself. Instead of just hiring an agent, the NFL superstar spent his off-season studying for the Washington State real estate exam. He became a legally licensed real estate agent, strictly so he could represent himself in the purchase of his own home. By acting as his own broker, Lockett saved himself a massive commission fee, keeping that wealth securely inside his own portfolio. But he didn't stop there. He turned his frugal maneuver into a legitimate secondary career, forming Live and Serve Real Estate. He now helps clients buy and sell homes, actively building a lucrative business outside of football that will sustain him long after his playing days are over. Lockett represents a hyper-modern version of living below your means. He doesn't just save money by clipping coupons. He bypasses the luxury tax entirely by becoming the vendor. He proves that protecting your wealth sometimes requires you to put on a suit and do the paperwork yourself. His approach to real estate is reflective of his approach to the wide receiver position: meticulous, detail-oriented, and always looking for the most efficient path to the goal. While other players spend their off-seasons on yachts, Lockett is often found closing deals and studying market trends, ensuring his family's legacy is built on brick and mortar rather than fleeting fame. Number 7. Alfred Morris. Picture the player's parking lot at the Dallas Cowboys training facility. It is a daily luxury car show of the highest order. You will find a sea of imported European sedans, custom-painted sports cars, and luxury trucks worth more than most American homes. And right in the middle of this billionaire-funded opulence sat a slightly rusted, faded 1991 Mazda 626. This was the daily driver of Alfred Morris, a starting running back for America's team, who was earning millions of dollars to carry the football on national television. The story of the Mazda is legendary in NFL circles. Morris bought the car from his pastor during his junior year of college at Florida Atlantic University. The price tag? Exactly $2. He affectionately nicknamed the car Bentley. When Morris was drafted into the NFL and began cashing massive game checks, the entire world expected him to upgrade to something that matched his Pro Bowl status. Running backs are notorious for flashy spending, and Morris certainly had the capital to buy a real Bentley if he wanted one. But he flatly refused to get rid of his $2 sedan. For Morris, the car was a rolling psychological anchor. He kept it because it reminded him of his struggles, of the days when he had to scrape together quarters just to put gas in the tank to get to practice. He drove it to the facility every single day as a physical reminder to stay hungry and humble. He recognized that lifestyle creep, the tendency to increase spending as income rises, is the silent killer of wealth. In a beautiful twist of fate, Mazda heard the story and offered to refurbish the car for him in 2013. They took the vehicle for several weeks, stripping it down to the frame and replacing every part with factory original components, effectively giving him a brand new 1991 car. By driving a car that was essentially worthless on the open market, Morris shielded his ego from the superficial demands of professional sports. He successfully separated his net worth from his self-worth, riding out a highly successful NFL career while navigating the streets in a car that cost less than a combo meal. His story remains a powerful lesson in the importance of remembering one's roots while building a future. Number 6. Nnamdi Asomugha. In 2011, Nnamdi Asomugha was considered the ultimate prize of the NFL free agency market. He was a shutdown cornerback, a defensive mastermind whose rare combination of size and speed made him the most feared defensive back in the game. The Philadelphia Eagles won the bidding war for his services, signing him to a breathtaking 5-year, $60 million contract with $25 million fully guaranteed. He was the highest-paid cornerback in the history of the sport at that time. With that level of generational wealth secured, Asomugha could have purchased a fleet of private jets or an entire dealership of exotic cars. Yet, as he arrived in Philadelphia, fans and teammates were stunned to see the $60 million man step out of a highly unspectacular 1997 Nissan Maxima. This wasn't a restored classic. It was a basic, aging sedan that he had owned since before his professional career even began. The car was actually a hand-me-down from his older brother, a vehicle that Asomugha had literally driven to his high school prom. Despite earning over $11 million a season, Asomugha refused to abandon his high school ride. His frugality was deeply tied to a profound sense of purpose that extended far beyond the football field. Asomugha wasn't interested in impressing the valet at expensive restaurants. He was focused on global impact and long-term sustainability. He quietly funneled his massive NFL earnings away from depreciating luxury items and into philanthropy and strategic investments. He founded the Asomugha Foundation, which funds educational programs for disadvantaged youth in the United States and supports orphans in Nigeria. He lived like he was poor when it came to personal indulgence so that he could be endlessly wealthy when it came to human impact. He drove a dated Nissan because he knew his true legacy wouldn't be parked in a garage. After retiring from the NFL, he successfully transitioned into a career as an actor and producer on Broadway and in film, proving that his discipline allowed him to reinvent himself on his own terms without the pressure of needing a quick paycheck. Number 5. Christian Wilkins. There is Frugal, and then there is Christian Wilkins. Drafted in the first round by the Miami Dolphins and eventually signing a staggering 4-year, $110 million mega contract with the Las Vegas Raiders in 2024, Wilkins is a defensive tackle with a bank account that rivals small corporations. Yet, his spending habits resemble those of a man preparing for a period of extreme economic scarcity. Wilkins entered the NFL with a reputation as the single most frugal prospect in draft history, and life-changing money hasn't altered his DNA one bit. During his time at Clemson University, while other collegiate stars were secretly going into debt to afford designer clothes and jewelry, Wilkins was executing a masterclass in extreme penny pinching. When he went to restaurants, he refused to order paid beverages, seeing them as an unnecessary tax on his meal. Instead, he would order a free water, politely ask for a side of lemons and sugar packets, and manually mix his own free lemonade at the table. He found an apartment for $300 a month but rarely spent time there. To save money on his personal water and electricity bills, Wilkins practically moved into the university's football facility, showering and eating all his meals on the team's dime. He didn't own a car, opting to ride a bike or beg teammates for rides. To manage his money, he utilized a strict 4-account system, giving himself a measly $150 a month for personal expenses. He even worked as a substitute teacher for $80 a day during the off-season to generate extra cash, ultimately saving over $15,000 before he ever turned pro. When he secured his 9-figure bag with the Raiders, Wilkins admitted he was still hesitant to spend on luxury. He continues to live drastically below his means, proving that a scarcity mindset, when weaponized correctly, can turn an NFL fortune into an unbreakable financial dynasty. He doesn't just save money, he completely insulates himself against the temptation of luxury. For Wilkins, the goal isn't to look like a millionaire. It is to ensure he remains one for the next several decades, regardless of what happens on the field. Number 4. Ryan Broyles. When you sign an NFL contract with over $1 million in fully guaranteed money, the illusion of infinite wealth immediately takes hold of most young men. For former Detroit Lions wide receiver Ryan Broyles, signing his $3.6 million rookie deal triggered the exact opposite reaction. Instead of asking what he could buy to celebrate his success, Broyles asked his financial advisor how he could make the money last until the day he died. He didn't want a few years of high-end luxury. He wanted a lifetime of absolute freedom. To achieve this, Broyles executed one of the most disciplined financial structures in modern sports history. He and his advisor calculated exactly what it cost for him and his wife to live a comfortable, normal, middle-class life in the Midwest. They factored in a standard mortgage, modest car payments for his Mazda, and 2005 Chevy Trailblazer, groceries, and a small entertainment budget. The magic number they arrived at was $5,000 a month. So, despite having millions sitting in the bank, Broyles put himself on a strict, unbreakable budget of $60,000 a year. He lived on this middle-class allowance while playing in the NFL, acting as if the rest of his contract simply did not exist. Every single dollar over that $60,000 threshold was aggressively invested into index funds, the stock market, and retirement accounts. He didn't subscribe to premium cable, he rarely ate out, and he paid off his credit cards in full every 30 days to avoid a single cent of interest. Broyles recognized that the average NFL career ends abruptly, and a player's earning window is terrifyingly small. He saw teammates blowing through their signing bonuses on jewelry and clubs, and he chose a different path. By forcing himself to live like an average corporate employee, he guaranteed that he would never have to become one out of necessity. Today, Broyles is often cited by financial planners as the gold standard for athlete wealth management, showing that a modest lifestyle is the ultimate insurance policy against the volatility of professional sports. Number 3. Glover Quin. Glover Quin played safety in the NFL for a decade, an exceptionally long career in a league that destroys bodies with alarming speed. During his tenure with the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions, Quin earned tens of millions of dollars. But he didn't just survive the physical toll of the NFL. He conquered the financial traps that ruined so many of his peers by instituting an unbending, institutional-level financial policy known as the 70-30 rule. From the moment Quin received his very first professional paycheck, he drew a hard line in the sand regarding his lifestyle. He committed to living on exactly 30% of his take-home pay. The remaining 70% was immediately treated as untouchable capital, destined for his war chest. This wasn't a loose guideline or a New Year's resolution. It was a mandatory personal law. If he wanted a nicer house or a better vacation, he couldn't just dip into the 70%. He had to figure out how to make it work within the 30% constraint. As his salary increased over the years from rookie wages to massive veteran extensions, his spending naturally went up in absolute terms, but the ratio never wavered. The brilliance of Quin's strategy lay in what he did with the 70%. He didn't just let it sit in a low-yield savings account where inflation would eat it. He aggressively studied venture capital, private equity, and real estate. He used his massive war chest to become a heavyweight investor while he was still in his physical prime. By the time he retired, Quin hadn't just saved his NFL salary, he had reportedly doubled it through savvy investments and dividends. He managed his household like a Fortune 500 company, requiring every dollar to have a job and a return on investment. He proves that immense wealth isn't generated by how much you earn on the field, but by how ruthlessly you protect and multiply your capital off of it. Today, he is a respected figure in the investment community, proving that the discipline of a professional safety translates perfectly to the world of high-stakes finance. Number 2. Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch, affectionately known worldwide as Beast Mode, is one of the most culturally significant and violently powerful running backs in football history. He was a bowling ball of pure aggression, leading the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl victory and establishing himself as a global icon. Over the course of his brilliant bruising career, Lynch earned an estimated $50 million purely from his NFL team contracts. Yet, his approach to that massive fortune is the stuff of financial legend. According to widespread reports and his own admissions, Marshawn Lynch did not spend a single dime of his NFL salary while he was playing. Not 1 cent. Every game check, every roster bonus, and every signing incentive was deposited directly into accounts that he refused to touch. How did a global superstar survive without spending his salary? He lived 100% off of his endorsement money. Because of his massive popularity and unique personality, Lynch secured lucrative off-field deals with massive brands like Nike, Skittles, Subway, and EA Sports. He allowed his endorsement checks to fund his daily life, effectively acting as if he played in the NFL for free. Lynch understood that his punishing, contact-heavy running style meant he was always one bad tackle away from a career-ending injury. He treated his team's salary as an emergency vault, a generational safety net that could never be compromised. This level of discipline is almost unheard of in professional sports, where the temptation to spend new money is often overwhelming. Today, Lynch is a minority owner in professional sports teams, the founder of multiple companies, and a savvy venture capitalist. He lived on the fringes of his own wealth so that, when the final whistle blew, he could walk away as a fully independent mogul, completely untouched by the financial ruin that claims so many running backs. His Beast Mode brand continues to thrive, proving that his authentic, no-nonsense approach to the world was his greatest asset, both on and off the turf. Number 1. Chad Ochocinco Johnson. Chad Johnson, the man who legally changed his name to Ochocinco, was the ultimate NFL showman. He was loud, flashy, brash, and endlessly entertaining. As an elite wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, he possessed footwork that broke ankles and a persona that captivated the media. To the outside world, Johnson looked like the quintessential big-spending athlete, complete with diamond chains, gold teeth, and high-end fashion. But behind the scenes, Chad Johnson was operating the greatest financial illusion in the history of sports. Johnson wasn't just frugal, he was radically, aggressively cheap. During his first 2 years in the NFL, when he was already making millions, Johnson refused to rent an apartment or buy a house. Instead, he secretly lived inside the Bengals stadium facility. He slept there, showered there, ate the team food, and utilized the team entertainment, entirely eliminating his housing and utility expenses. He realized that by living at the facility, he could stay focused on his craft while his bank account grew exponentially. When he finally did move out of the stadium, his frugality only escalated. The massive diamond chains and Rolexes he wore on national television, they were entirely fake. He openly admitted to buying his jewelry at Claire's, a mall kiosk brand typically for teenagers. He refused to fly private jets, famously opting for Spirit Airlines and only splurging for the extra legroom in the exit row. He realized early on that as a famous athlete, women and brands didn't care about the receipt on his watch. His name was the currency. By refusing to pay the celebrity tax on luxury goods, Johnson saved an estimated 83% of his entire career earnings. He trolled the entire world, letting everyone believe he was blowing his fortune on a flashy lifestyle, while he quietly stacked tens of millions of dollars in the bank. Chad Johnson proves that the ultimate flex isn't wearing a real Rolex. It's having the net worth to buy the whole company while proudly wearing a fake one. His story is the ultimate example of how mastering one's ego is the most important skill an athlete can possess. These men beat the most dangerous opponent in the NFL, financial ruin. By driving beat-up sedans, flying budget airlines, and treating their millions like untouchable capital, they prove that keeping your money is a far greater flex than spending it. Which of these frugal strategies surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. To master the psychology of the ultra-wealthy, subscribe to Black Status. See you in the next one.